Пора бежать. Кстати говоря, да, да, вот это здесь.
Have you ever sat down to work on a game and instead just stared blankly at your monitor? Your mind feels empty, void of any good game ideas, and you just feel completely uninspired. I know I have, but what if I told you that you can learn to find motivation and inspiration in everything around you? In order to tackle such a difficult subject, we had to bring in the big guns. Yes, none other than the monster tri-man himself, Reese Geoffroy.
That's weird. This is not my channel. Well, whatever. I am so excited to talk about motivation, so let's get into it.
Now, before we talk about how to find motivation, it's important for us to understand that motivation comes in three phases. And these are inspiration, infatuation, and determination. Today we'll only be covering the first two, but if you'd like to learn more about determination, Reese and I did a video on his channel talking all about it, so definitely go check it out. So starting with inspiration, what is it and how do you get it? Inspiration is that feeling when you're taking a walk outside or you're playing a game and you just come up with a really creative idea and you feel passionate. You don't have to force yourself to do it. It just feels really natural. Now for a lot of people, inspiration feels like it never strikes in the same place twice. But I disagree. There are ways and things that you can do to actually help yourself become inspired. For example, when I was working on my game Squeeze and Squalls, I really wasn't sure what sort of game, and it kind of had to be winter themed. I knew I wanted to create a roguelike game, but for the setting, I just was running out of ideas. And at the time, I was listening to Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker, which is a fantastic score that I highly recommend you listen to. There's a part in the Nutcracker play where they fight the Mouse King, and I just thought that was such a cool and interesting thing to add in a winter game, is to have these mice that are fighting, and maybe there's a Mouse King. So that's where I found inspiration for Squeaks and Squalls. Now there's been other times that I've really struggled to figure out the pathways. Have you ever sat down to work on a game and instead just stared blankly at your monitor? Your mind feels empty, void of any good game ideas, and you just feel completely uninspired. I know I have, but what if I told you that you can learn to find motivation and inspiration in everything around you? In order to tackle such a difficult subject, we had to bring in the big guns. Yes, none other than the monster tri-man himself, Reese Geoffroy. Think of everything around you. In order to tackle such a difficult subject, we had to bring in the big guns. Yes, none other than the monster tri-man himself, Reese Geoffroy.
That's weird. This is not my channel. Well, whatever. I am so excited to talk about motivation, so let's get into it.
Now, before we talk about how to find motivation, it's important for us to understand that motivation comes in three phases. And these are inspiration, infatuation, and determination. Today,
Воспаление. Спать. Возьмешь, что ты возникаешь. Да, вот он говорит, плохо у тебя все, вот и все, да. Не только не нужно, да. Я понял, сидите, я. Мне фортепиано надо, и деньги нужны для него, понимаешь? Вот, за игру на фортепиано я имею в виду. Ну вы тупые просто не понимаете, просто ну нет, он что-то издевается просто, наоборот, нет.
They will only be covering the first two, but if you'd like to learn more about determination, Reese and I did a video on his channel talking all about it, so definitely go check it out. So starting with inspiration, what is it and how do you get it? Inspiration is that feeling when you're taking a walk outside or you're playing a game and you just come up with a really creative idea and you feel passionate about it. You don't have to force yourself to do it, it just feels really natural. Now Now, for a lot of people, inspiration feels like lightning. It never strikes in the same place twice. But I disagree. There are ways and things that you can do to actually help yourself become inspired. For example, when I was working on my game Squeaks and Squalls, I really wasn't sure what sort of game, and it kind of had to be winter themed. I knew I wanted to create a roguelike game, but for the setting, I just was running out of ideas. And at the time, I was listening to Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker, which is a fantastic score that I highly recommend you listen to. There's a part in the Nutcracker play where they fight the Mouse King. And I just thought that it was such a cool and interesting thing to add in a winter game, is to have these mice that are fighting, and maybe there's a Mouse King. So that's where I found inspiration for Squeaks and Squalls. Now, there's been other times that I've really struggled to figure out the type of game or genre I wanted to make. And I think part of it is that we try to get our inspiration too much from other video games. What happens if you only pull inspiration from other video games, you end up creating something that doesn't feel incredibly original, or maybe something you're passionate about. So what I recommend is that go out in nature, look around you. What are things that you love and enjoy? The creator of Celeste loved rock climbing, so he made a game about climbing a mountain. Find things, find hobbies that you enjoy in the real world, and apply them to your games. And you'll find that inspiration is just around the corner.
When trying to find inspiration, I often find myself looking to those who know it all and have their journeys already fleshed out. It may inspire us to be like them someday, but this can also have the reversed effect. Always comparing ourselves with professionals in our field can sometimes become draining and sabotage our own successes. So what if instead we flipped the switch? What if we looked at just how far we have come on our own journeys and took a look at our past selves, or even other devs out there that are just starting or struggling to find their way? I don't mean to come off as arrogant or egotistical here, but I am sure that there are many people out there who wish they were in yours or my situation, and we need to own them. We need to take responsibility for everything we have done thus far and find inspiration from within. I think as humans we often dream about the future or push away the past, but why not find motivation to keep going from where we have come from and where we are headed? This is personally how I went from somewhat successful but miserable developing games to actually being happy and enjoying the process. I'm not focused on where I will end up. I have committed to what I believe in and am now just living it out day by day. I always keep the future in mind, but I am no longer stressed or anxious about every passing day. If you put enough true effort forward and believe in what you are doing, you can achieve success much faster, but also in a much healthier way. To sum things up, I like to find inspiration from my own work, and whenever I'm feeling lost, I just look at where I came from, and hopefully I am doing better. If this isn't the case for you, I'm sure you can still find motivation through the skills that you have learned along the way, or where you can envision your life going in the future. Not all future thinking is bad, just make sure to not get lost in your vision.
Now the second stage.
Блин, сволочь. Ты мне показываешь эту штуку, иди нафиг. Ну ты что, обождел что ли? Все. Вот, на, должен. Понял. Наоборот, потому что сидел так думал. Да наоборот. Да наоборот. Да наоборот. Да на, вот это есть. Оно самое есть. Зарево мразь, молодец. Мразь. Да на. Ну вот нет, ну наоборот. Ну да.
Determination. The controlling or deciding of something's nature.
Stage of motivation is infatuation. It's a period where nothing is wrong with your game. Everything is perfect. You're excited. You're addicted to your game. You can't stop working on it. But the problem with it is it's this temporary feeling of love. You don't really love your project. You just are kind of in love with the newness of it. And here's where I can find myself getting messed up when working on a project. You think that infatuation is the motivation for your game. So you're passionate about it, and after a week or two, that infatuation wears off. And instead of feeling excited about working on your project, you actually start to get really bored and irritated and frustrated with your project. You see all its problems afterwards, but then you end up just dropping it. And here's the thing, infatuation is not motivation. It is a tool to help you launch into a game or a project. So we understand that inspiration is the idea, it's the conception of a game or a project. And then the infatuation period is kind of like the kindling to the fire. It just builds up this fire to get you passionate about your game so that you get started. But when all of that goes away, that's when the determination comes in. Because the difference between motivation and determination is that motivation generally is a feeling. It's this emotional response to, hey, I saw this thing and it made me inspired and I'm infatuated and I just want to work on this thing. When determination is, hey, I don't feel like doing this, but I'm going to do it. If you feel like you struggle with finding that determination, then I honestly encourage you to go check out Reese's channel and to watch the video we did on it. Ultimately, motivation is a major topic and something I would love to talk about more in greater detail, but I hope this helped you get a better sense of the cycle of motivation. And next time when you are going through the motions and you notice it happen, maybe you can push through further and be like, oh, this is just this part, and I know I need to move on to the next stage. Also, I just want to give a huge shout out to Reese. His channel is fantastic, and he's just a life giver. He loves to encourage people, and he's working on a fantastic monster battler game called Monster Tribe. It's amazing. Check it out. It's going to be coming on Kickstarter soon, and you know I'm going to be backing it. If you have any questions or things that motivate you, please leave them in the chat. I respond to every single comment. It's important for me. It takes me hours, but I do it because I love interacting with you guys. Also, if you want to support the channel, make sure you like and subscribe. I know we've been doing a little bit different videos here, talking more about general motivation with game dev. There will be more Dewdrop devlogs, so look forward to that. And I just hope you guys have a fantastic week. Peace out, and I'll see you next time.
Нахер.
Side projects. The bane of every programmer's existence. existence. Maybe you're working on a big project, or maybe you're just, I don't know, researching. And then
Ты что издеваешься? Что такое-то?
Hey guys, my name is Thomas Brush. I'm the creator of a game called Pinstripe. I'm also working on a game called Once Upon a Coma, which will be released on consoles and Steam later this summer. I want to talk about your very first game. A lot of you are thinking about starting your first game, or maybe even finishing up your first game and thinking about how much money is this game actually going to make. Well, I can't give you the exact figures, right? I'm not God, I don't know what's going to happen with your game, but I can give you a philosophy to live by, some rules of thumb about your very first game and how much money it's going to make. But before I tell you about how much money your first game is going to make, I want to talk about Skillshare. Guys, I'm really thankful for Skillshare, not only because they sponsored this video, but because they provide a ton of resources and courses available for you, and you can get 2 months free. And these courses are going to help you learn how to make games and get financial freedom to be able to maybe quit your job or launch your very first game. They have courses on 2D animation, 2D design, coding, development, marketing, storytelling, audio design. I mean, whatever you want to learn, it's probably on Skillshare. So guys, please click below if you're interested in getting 2 free months of Skillshare. Thank you so much, Skillshare, and thank you for sponsoring this video. Alright, let's start off with my first game, okay? My first game was called Coma. Well, that's what I've been telling you. But really, my very, very, very first game was a game called Flash Geometry Wars. This game was a complete rip-off of Geometry Wars, but I wanted to make a Flash version and see if I could do it, so I just sort of coded some really crappy if-then statements and a little bit of trig, and I put it together and I made Flash Geometry Wars. And this was my very, 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 very first game, and it made $0. And then I made Coma. Wait, nope, that's not true. And then I made a game, I think it was called Pan's Apples. And that game was a game about Peter Pan, and you could fly around and collect apples. I don't know why I decided to make a game about this, but I just started working on it, and it worked out, and it was fun, and I made a game called Pan's Apples. So after I made that game and made $0, I made Coma. Now Coma was my first real game, even though it was a free Flash game, and that game ended up making about $20,000. But that wasn't from sales or even ad revenue. That was from selling it, everything, the whole IP, and that's intellectual property. I sold the entire IP to a publisher. I eventually bought it back, and I'm making the sequel right now, but that's a long story. But overall, you can see that my first 3 games, in terms of sales numbers and ad revenue, was $0. I made a couple $100s here and there, and I think with Coma, maybe I made a couple grand off of the ads. But overall, when it comes to game sales, it's nothing, right? And I think this is a really important thing to remember. I wasn't making games to make money. I was making games because I wanted to. And a lot of you right now have maybe it's my fault, right? I wasn't making games to make, right? And I think this is a really important thing to remember. I wasn't making games to make money. I was making games because I wanted to. And a lot of you right now have maybe it's my fault, right? Maybe I've been telling you how you you can be successful as a game developer. Maybe it's the indie game documentary, or maybe there's other developers out there who make millions of dollars, or even just 6 figures off of their games, and you think that you can do it too. Now, obviously, you can do this too, but I would say it's very important to remember that your first game, the very first game that you release,
Want to pass your certification exams first time? At Exam Labs, we've got you covered. Look,
it probably won't make money. It might make a couple $100, maybe even $2,000, but probably won't make money. There's a couple reasons for that. Mainly it's because games that you make, the very first game you make, is probably going to be short, it's probably going to be small, it's probably going to be a prototype of some kind that you release to itch.io or GameJolt or just some free website. Now, is it wrong that your game makes $0? Is it unjust? Well, of course not. I mean, it's your first game, and it's probably not going to make money because you're new to this, right? The thing that you get out of your first game, the value that you get out of your very first game, it's not money. It is not money. It is learning how to make a game, how to release a game, and learning what you did wrong and what you did right, and then making the next one. I think about this often, but Edmund McMillen, who made Super Meat Boy, and is wildly successful, I actually looked up all the games that he made. It's ridiculous how many games he made before he made Super Meat Boy. So let's just go to Wikipedia here and take a look at what Edmund McMillen's career was. Oh, well, it looks like he made Super Meat Boy and The Binding of Isaac and The End is Nigh. Those are the first 3 games that show up on Wikipedia. Man, this guy is brilliant. He's so successful. I'm not like Edmund McMillen. He's so smart. Well, he is smart, but let's keep going. You scroll down, you see an entire list of games that he made that you probably don't know about. And these were games he made before Super Meat Boy. The Backup Files, The Lonely Hermit, Dead Baby Dress Up, 12 Uses of Dead Bodies, Dead Baby Dress Up 2, 6 more Dead Baby Uses, Dead Baby Dress Up 3, Style Man Dress Up, WWF Baby Dress Up, 8 more Dead Babies. The list goes on and on and on. Lots of dead babies. And when did he make Super Meat Boy? When did he make Super Meat Boy? I don't even... He made it like 20 games after. The rule of thumb that we can gather from this is, if you want to be successful, you need to release games. So stop thinking of your... It's not your baby. I mean, no game should be your baby. I hate that line of, or that philosophy of making games or making any creative work. It's not your baby, it's just a project, okay? You're having fun, it's your job, or maybe it's not your job, it's a hobby. It's not your baby. Your baby should be a human being. That's who your baby should be. That's where you should invest all of your emotion and your depression and your anxiety and your happiness and your joy. All of those emotions should be put on people, not projects. That said, your very first game is not going to be your baby. Especially your very first game is not going to be your baby. So what I would say is treat your first game not as some doorway to financial independence and wealth and quitting your job and starting a new career. Treat your first game like your first game. It's a project that's going to teach you a lot about making games. It's going to teach you how to make a game, how to release a game, and most importantly, your very first game is going to teach you how to finish a game. That is, and I hate to say it, so I feel like I'm being a jerk right now, but a lot of you don't know how to finish a game. Honestly, a lot of you don't know how to finish a game. How many games have you quit, right? How many games have you even thought about that you never even started? Your very first game should teach you how to finish a game. It should teach you how to make games. And I don't know if I would ever gotten where I am now if I didn't release Flash Geometry Wars or Pan's Apples, right? I don't know where I would be if I didn't take the step to releasing those games. And guys, I didn't treat those games like they were super special. I really didn't. I just made them really quick and uploaded them online and forgot about them. I think it was like 3 months later where I decided that I was going to look at the reviews for Flash Geometry Wars. And they were pretty good. Some of them were crap. But I didn't stress over it. It wasn't a huge deal to me. A lot of you think about your game right now, whether it's even just an idea. You think about it with such anxiety and stress, and you're worried about what people will think. You're worried about whether you can actually do it. And I would say, just get it done and release it. Just get it out there. Who cares what people think? It's going to probably flop anyway, so don't worry about it. A lot of you might be mad right now hearing me say that it's probably going to flop anyway, but I promise you, if you embrace that mentality right now, you'll be so much more grateful after you release your game than releasing your game thinking you're going to make $1 million or even just $100,000 and realizing that the road is a little bit longer than that. You can't just release one game and expect it to be successful. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you like this video, please hit subscribe, hit the like button, and consider supporting on Patreon. Also, you can wishlist Once Upon a Coma, which is coming to Steam and consoles later this summer. Thanks guys, I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Gubaev nervous.
For just $67, you can make as many videos as you want. Pick up a camera or use any fancy editing. Hey man, I'm gonna do something on Twitter. It's a tower defense dungeon crawler RPG. And you can get it on Steam now. Please do, or else I'll be poor.
Welcome back.
So today I'm featuring these 3 pieces of art. Follow and DM me on Twitter if you want to get your artwork featured in the next episode. Just make sure to send it to me at the original size. Don't scale it up because then I can't work on it in the video. This one's pretty good, but I think I see a few things we can improve. Okay, so the first thing I would do is I would add an outline to the clothing as well. I'm just going to go ahead and do that here. You have an outline on a lot of stuff, so just for consistency, I think it should be on the clothing as well. You could probably remove that pixel. And I do like how you made the outline of this red fabric. Consistency, I think it should be on the clothing as well. You could probably remove that pixel. And I do like how you made the outline of this red fabric here red. And maybe you could put the outline over here as well. It's not really necessary to put it everywhere.
what you did here is kind of fine, where you just put it on one side. You do have the problem of doing doubles. So if you look, oh, that's a ugly color. If you look here and here, these two pixels are stacked, but they really don't have to be. So I would remove that. Don't stack pixels. When you go diagonally, try not to create that L shape. So I noticed it up here too in the hair. We can get rid of it there. Let's see if there's any other doubles. Down here in the hair, looks like you wanted to shade it more using that outline, but I wouldn't shade using the outline. If you want to shade, just use a darker version. Right here you have another one. If you want to shade, just use a darker version of the color inside. Reserve the outline for outlines. If you're having problems with doubles when you're drawing, the cool thing about Sprite is that it has this option, Pixel Perfect, and when you click that, check it out. It removes all the doubles. All of these pixels that stack, they're not there. The pixel art program I'm using is called Sprite. Please click the link in the description if you're going to get it, because if you buy it through Humble, I get a tiny kickback. I'm not sponsored by it.
Какая ассоциация возникает у тебя на слово «инвестиции»? Дай угадаю. Дорого, сложно, рискованно?
There are a lot of things that are shaded here correctly, except that there isn't enough contrast in the shading. So, for example, when we're this close, we can see the highlights here in the hair. But look at the preview. In the preview, you can't see it at all. So, for example, this hair color here, I'm going to make it darker. Now that I made the hair darker, we can see those highlights a lot better. I do think some of your highlights are in weird locations. I would probably shade this, not add a highlight to it. So I would probably do something like that. I would shade it in this part and then highlight the top. And if you want to add a lot of highlights to the hair, an easy way to do that is to just do something like this. Just add a dash into the hair. So there's a highlight here in the hair, but it really doesn't give it that much form. I'm going to color this in and then sort of like start from scratch to kind of show you how I would go about shading this part. So first thing I would do is I'd make the entire end piece brighter, because this part is pointing up towards the light. And then I would add the highlight here just like you had it. But as you can see, I'm increasing the highlight drastically over here near the bottom and near the part that curves. And if you look at the preview, it just has so much more form. And I'm easing it out. There's like a gradual increase here. And you could, but I wouldn't add shading down here. You could, and it would look all right. You'd have to keep it very thin like this. And when you add shading near on both sides, it means that the light is coming from behind. And you can see that on my cheek on my face right here. I have light coming from behind, so there's a highlight on the side of my head. And you can do that with any object. You don't have to have a highlight on one side. You can have a highlight on both sides, and it will still emphasize that the object is round. I did a shading video. Go find that, and I talk about that technique a lot more. So for the head here, I would also shade a larger chunk. Instead of just having a very thin outline on the edge, I would shade a much bigger portion of this. And it allows you to really show the shape of that object. Also, kind of pick one direction, like let's say from above and a little to the right, and always add a lot more shading there. I'm not, and that's how I caught up on Pro real quick so I could edit these videos. Skillshare is less than $10 a month with the annual subscription. And the first 1,000 people to use the link in my description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium.
Я занимался духовными практиками больше 30 лет. Серьезно, сам добавляюсь. Буддизмом, даосизмом, шаманизмом, все.
I would add a pixel here just to make it look like there's more of a thread coming off of it. If you look at the preview now, it looks more like threads coming off of it. And then these lines here, you can also have some around the waist, because there'd be wrinkles There'd be wrinkles right around the waist, you know. That's a good spot to add highlights as well. If I
Ну, я понял. Ну, я понял. Ну, нет. Нет, ну ладно. Да. Ну, нет, понял. Да, да. Ну.
GMTK Game Jam for 2020 began on the 10th of July. At the time of writing this script, 5,306 games were submitted, and this video is about one in particular, Living Labyrinth. Before that, however, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Core. Core is an exciting new game development platform. Keep watching for more information on that later in the video. Having been out with friends earlier in the evening, I got home with 5 minutes to go until the start of the jam. Made my way upstairs to my computer to watch the live stream, just in time for the theme announcement.
This year, for 2020, the theme is out of control.
I was a little thrown by this theme at first, not gonna lie. Last year's only one was super open, and this felt a bit more restrictive. Nonetheless, I got to work brainstorming some ideas. An hour or so in, I still wasn't entirely sure what I'd make, and decided to go join my friends again at the pub. It was there I had my first idea. I got home, sketched out my plan for the game, and created Drunk Game GMTK 2020 in Unity. Started grabbing some ideas for visuals from Pinterest before getting to bed, ready to start work on my pretty questionable idea the next morning. I awoke to the realization that Drunk Game GMTK 2020 just wasn't going to cut it. As everyone knows, the shower is where every smart idea happens, and that's where I realised where I was going wrong. I set my computer up, planned up my new idea, and started work on the game I would eventually complete. I started by drawing out the basic tiles, which would make up the level area. The concept is the player has no control over the main character. Instead, they must rearrange parts of a labyrinth to guide the moving character to the goal. I created a circle to represent the character and the goal, before slicing the sprites and naming them in Unity. I added a grid to the scene to keep everything tidy and laid out the 16 tiles the player would be able to rearrange. In order for that all to work, of course, I had to make some scripts, starting firstly with the scripts to control tiles and define how the tiles would behave. I wrote a bunch of tile templates, 11 different variations in total, before getting to work on coding the level grid. Each arrow button you see here will either shift a row or column up or down, depending on which arrow you click. These buttons use colliders rather than the Unity UI system, just so they can easily line up with the level scene. I got that working, detecting each click, and not long after that, shifting rows in a predefined level. Representing the level as an array in the background makes it super easy to move tiles around, with each sprite in the scene changing to represent the current layout. Next, the character had to move around the level autonomously, which is crucial to the game actually matching the jam theme. I created a script to control the character and set a start position for levels. Here, the movement timer ticks once per second, but the character doesn't move yet. At that point, it was about 18 hours into the jam. 30 hours left, so I took a short break to have some lunch and watched Thin Matrix's new video before soon getting back to work on character movement. The character starts at the start position and moves once per second to the next clear tile, only moving backwards on special dead-end tiles. It will also react to tiles being moved around. The problem though is that some tiles should be locked, such as the tile the character is currently on. I added a boolean value to lock tiles in the level config, which worked pretty well the first time around. The tile in the bottom left here is locked, so the row and column it occupies can't move. Finally, each level needs to have a goal. So I added a finishing tile and finishing position variable to the level config before creating a new game object to represent goals in the game. While I was at it, I added a placeholder reset button, just so the functionality is there. I assigned a reset event to that button and set up a level for testing. Levels are just scriptable objects that can be outlined as a series of drop-down boxes. Sick of the boring white placeholder art, I thought it was probably about time to think about making the game actually look good. I knew I wanted to make the game with a limited palette of colours and eventually settled on a pink and green colour scheme. 3 colours in total, a dark and medium green and a bright pink. I animated the trophy first before moving on to designing the tiles. Each tile here is 24 by 24 pixels with 9 segments of 8 by 8. This means very little space for detail and a pretty retro aesthetic. Limited palettes and resolutions are a well-known way to really push your pixel art skills, which I certainly discovered. I went through a bunch of miserable designs for the tiles before finally arriving at one I liked. With all of the new tiles drawn, I imported them into Unity and tested them with the level. It looked good, but all the small details made it quite hard to make out the paths. I removed all the individual pixels in the drawings to try and help the readability of the levels, finding out tile outlines. It's pretty safe to say they looked absolutely terrible, so I quickly removed them and decided to draw some control arrows instead. I then set up the trophy animation I made earlier in the day, and the result at about 11 PM on Saturday night was this. I always like to have the gameplay down by the end of day 1 so I can spend day 2 polishing and bug fixing. Alright, so last day of the jam. I spent a load of time just drawing level designs on paper, trying to think how each tile will move to reach a solution. I made 6 levels in total, but I think this concept has room for a lot more. I then drew some graphics for the level count displayed nice and large like a fraction in the corner of the screen. I set up the level counter in Unity, created a script, and added all the numbers for the counter to use. With some animations added, this is how the level counter looks when completing a level. Next up, the reset button got the first of many redesigns before I started work on audio for the game. It was 1 PM on Sunday and I had just 7 hours left. I set up audio sources for the level scene and explored some sound effect libraries I've collected over time. With 5.5 hours left, I created an end screen. It counts all the levels you solved in the optimal number of turns, which I hope encourages completionists to replay the game. With just 3 hours left, I created a logo for the game, using the bold pink in an attempt to stand out, before getting that onto the game's main menu. With that final piece in place, the game just needed a page on itch.io. It took 4 attempts and a few bug fixes, but at 7:20 PM with just 40 minutes to go, the game was ready to be submitted. But before I show you the finished game, you guys often ask me how you can get involved with game development yourselves, so I'm excited to have partnered with Core for this video. Core is a brand new completely free game creation platform powered by the Unreal Engine, supporting everything from building and publishing to playing other people's creations. Whether you have plenty of coding experience or none at all, this is an incredibly powerful set of tools which allows you to get started actually making games, regardless of experience. It's packed full of music, sound and art assets which you can customize to your liking to create some truly stunning and varied environments. When you create a new project, you can start completely from scratch, select from a range of templates, or even remix other people's creations. The creators host a range of community events to get some inspiration from, including the current Secret Spaces Game Jam, with a pretty insane prize pool of $3,500. It's super easy to get started, and if you follow my link in the description, you can download Core and get started making games. So this is how Living Labyrinth plays. You can shift an entire row or column in the maze left or right, up or down. The aim is to gradually direct the explorer towards their goal. When a level is complete, everything shuffles around and the next level appears. The levels should, in theory, get progressively harder, and I've tried to make things as juicy and satisfying as possible. There's a link to the game for you to play in the description, and anyone can leave a rating for the game. It would be awesome to try and get top 100 again this year.
If you are going to rate the game though, do leave an honest rating. The top patrons I'd like to thank for this video are Alex, Nico, Ekapivol, Sheshpesh, Pepe BNT, Pepper Trollman,
Mechanical problems. Do you not believe me? Вот нет, да. Вот нет, да. Don't get me wrong. You got it wrong. Got it wrong. Ну наоборот. А чем ты еще будешь заниматься? Смотри, всю свою жизнь, что ты будешь делать? Да. Честный вопрос, нет, не честный. Да. Так это так, ну и что? Вот и разберись сам тогда, думаю, вот. Женщине лучше заниматься вот этим, да. И последствиями этого, точнее, да. Если ты, я знаю, что ты там подумал. Этим лучше заниматься, да. Там все вместе, и там вообще все, больше ничего не надо добавлять даже. Там еще даже какие-то есть штуки такие. Ну, понял он тебя просто уже. Ты можешь сколько угодно издеваться, как бы. Женщина, она не мужчина, понимаешь, ей не надо про это, да. Ну, как бы, не знаю, мне плевать, мне насрать. Все равно они тоже как-то свою жизнь живут, у них тоже они тоже что-то там делают каждый день, понимаешь. Ну вот и все, да. Лучше бы вот так вот, понимаешь. Здоровье за тебя все решил. Капелька любви, как говорится, это уже да. Меня и уродуют, в смысле, ладно, я понял. Да, ну да, нормально, что было все. Вот и все больше. Все, что еще? Что тебе еще надо? Что тебе мало, что ли? Не касается, а что ты делал? Но это будет не только за мой счет, это сейчас все, да, понимаю. И скорее всего за их тоже счет. То есть, как бы, скорее всего, тоже этого не захотят. Да, то есть это не настоящая судьба для них, да. Понимаю, да. Выходит, что да, поняла. Ну да. Ну ладно. Ну просто абстрактная судьба, просто абстрактно, я не понимаю. Ты что, роскошно так живешь, я просто... Ну ладно, понимаю. Ну не выйдет так. Кто хорошо живет, а кто плохо. Есть же какие-то критерии, потому что все же, она понимает тебя просто, да. Ну да, можно и так сказать, вообще в целом, да. То есть как бы все равно есть какой-то КПД, кстати говоря, да. Ну то есть, ну это не надо дурака, что хочешь. Просто, да, то есть куда тянуть тебе, то есть куда. Надо все-таки как-то выбирать, что ты сделаешь, а не просто желать искать, правильно? Ну да, понимаю, да. Ну ты же не муравей, не трава. Вот они вот жрут, срут там, понимаешь, целыми днями. То ты не сможешь там прожить. Ты создание, можно сказать. Ты понимаешь, да, долго просто. Ну что, не так, что ли? У тебя кроме рта и желудка больше ничего нет, ты тут такой таракан. Ну женщина, ты же что, мужчина что ли?